of Sharm el-Sheikh. And social media site Facebook has reported a spike in profits.
Ganjapreneur.com, your guide to the cannabis business world. Ganjapreneur.com is a comprehensive resource for cannabis professionals and entrepreneurs. Download the Ganjapreneur app on your smartphone or tablet to catch up on cannabis industry news, scroll through our daily job listings, and learn about successful cannabis companies, executives, and investors. Ganjapreneur.com, helping Ganjapreneurs grow.
Ignite the conversation on some trending topics along the Cannabis Radio social media network. Join our crew of thousands on our Cannabis Radio page on Facebook or at Canna Radio, C-A-N-N-A Radio on Twitter. Plus, look for our Facebook and Google Plus pages for all of our original programs and connect with Dr. Dina, Kyle Cushman, Dr. Mitch Earlywine, Nurse Heather, Doc Rob, the host of Ganjapreneur, and more. Connect with the growing Cannabis Radio social crusade at Canna Radio on Twitter or search for Cannabis Radio on Facebook, Google Plus, and Instagram and grow with us. Knowledge is the key. CannabisRadio.com is here to keep you in the know on Just Say No. Did you know there are over 100 medical conditions that can benefit from cannabis therapy? Just Say No talks to patients who have used cannabis to treat their medical symptoms and create a better quality of life. Each week, we will tackle a chronic condition by talking to patients, doctors, and researchers with the goal to helping you live, learn, and thrive. Just say yes to Just Say No. Now here is your host, Ryan Hunt from MJWellness.com.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Ryan Hunt from MJWellness.com, and welcome to Just Say No. Each week here on Just Say No, we evaluate, investigate, give a thorough look at all the various diseases we think cannabis therapy can help. Today on our show, we continue our conversation with Dr. David Casaret. Dr. Casaret is a physician and professor at the Perelman School of Medicine in Pennsylvania. He's also the author of the new book, Stoned. Hello, and thanks for joining us, Dr. Casaret.
Thanks. It's great to be with you.
What about topicals? Do these do anything different? I've tried a few in the past, and it doesn't seem like anything but lotion to me, but maybe I'm just not feeling it.
Yeah, it's weird. If you look at the research that's been done, not a huge amount, but some, that research mostly on mouse models, because mice skin is kind of similar to ours in terms of structure. Pig skin is similar to human skin too. But in laboratory tests, trying to figure out how to get THC and CBD to be absorbed through the skin, it seems like the skin is really a pretty tough barrier, meaning it's hard to get THC and CBD dissolved through the skin. There's a couple caveats there, though. One is that I've met plenty of people who swear by it. So are they deluded? Is that the placebo effect? Or maybe they're onto something? I'm not really sure. Whenever you talk about absorption, you're always talking, though, and this is the second point, about a concentration game. So even if only 1 in 100 molecules is able to get through a skin barrier, if you put lots and lots of THC and CBD in a lotion, put a lot of that lotion on an area of the body where the skin is fairly thin, like the inside of the arms, for instance, as opposed to the shoulders or back, there are fewer barriers. Yeah, it's possible that you could manage to get enough of those molecules through the barrier to have an effect. In general, though, so I wouldn't say it doesn't work or it never works, but in general, it's probably not the most efficient way to get those molecules into you.
Yeah, I have a question about that, not to get too deep into it, but when something breaks through the skin barrier, is it more targeted than if you ingested it or smoked it? Let's say I have a pain in my elbow and I rub something on it. Does the absorption just go into that area, or would it be all over your body like a Tylenol or something?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's probably a little bit of both, and the balance of which it is depends on the molecules themselves. Mm-hmm. So there's certainly some molecules like dimethyl sulfoxide, which is used as an industrial solvent. It's also used in laboratory experiments because it's a very, very efficient solvent. And it'll go through barriers like the skin, it'll go through cell walls, and it'll just travel almost like a ghost. Doesn't even slow down when it goes from one cell to another. And so that travels throughout the body pretty quickly, but it also spreads locally. So it's sometimes used to provide local relief. You rub it on an elbow, and then it disseminates throughout the elbow. It's often used as a homeopathic arthritis remedy. But THC and CBD don't do that unless they're bound to something like DMSO. They don't seem to be able to cross membranes very quickly. So my best guess, and this is really just a guess, is that there may be some additional local effect, but probably what's happening is those few molecules are getting into the bloodstream, the capillaries right in the skin, and then going throughout the body, keeping in mind that you're not really getting too many of them through that barrier. So you've only got a few molecules that are winding up in the capillaries, and you've got those few molecules that are being disseminated throughout the body. So any one cell in your body is probably unlikely to see any of them. So again, not a real efficient way to go.
Gotcha. So let's talk about efficient ways to go. What do you think the best way to consume marijuana is? I mean, we have vaping, we have tinctures. I personally use a tincture for myself. But vaping, I was interested to read that CBD and THC actually have a different combustion temperature. So if you're vaping, you may be vaping more of the THC and less of the CBD. Do I have that right?
Yeah, you do. So they don't combust, but they evaporate at different temperatures. It's sort of like alcohol and water have different evaporation temperatures. Alcohol evaporates, boils at a lower temperature. So you can actually boil off alcohol if you keep the temperature of the alcohol-water mixture below what is required to boil off water. It's the same principle that by adjusting the temperature of the vape device, whatever you're using, you could dial in more or less THC or CBD. Whether that matters clinically, though, I think is a bit of a question still. Certainly, whether you get a lot of THC or a little THC matters clinically. It'll definitely affect how you feel. But that's an overly scientific way to do it. If you ask me, you could just take 2 puffs instead of 4 puffs, and you will have effectively dialed back the concentration of THC. The effect that CBD has on modulating the effects of THC, I think is still pretty theoretical. Although there are some people who believe that by adding more CBD to that THC-CBD mix, you can dial in more mellow effects, more of a body effect, potentially, and less feeling of being high and euphoric. From what I can tell, that's still kind of hypothetical, although lots of people swear by it.
Yeah, I think when I look to the future, I think about people being more comfortable taking pills than smoking something. A lot of people just don't want to smoke anything at all, even if it's vaping or it's vapor that you're smoking. But the thing about edibles is it just takes so long to metabolize in your system, and you don't know how high you're going to get. If you were to take marijuana, would you suggest tinctures or something that you'd be able to feel the effects within the first 15 minutes?
It's a great question. I think it depends on what somebody's looking for. And again, I live in a state where it's illegal, so I can't actually give the advice I'm about to give you. But I think you're right. A lot of people like pills, and for that reason, they like edibles. And a lot of older people, I think I spoke with in researching stoned, by older I mean over the age of 70, really turn to edibles because it feels more proper and more appropriate. It feels more like a medication. It feels less like a drug. You know, you could take a square of chocolate a couple hours before a meal to improve your appetite. That, to many people who are perfectly fine with taking medications for blood pressure or whatever, are okay with taking edibles. So I think edibles will still, in one way, shape, or form, will still continue to be popular. I think edibles will probably get better as we get more sophisticated in figuring out what THC and CBD and maybe other cannabinoids do, being able to get edibles with very defined amounts, concentrations, and ratios of those two. And I think for some symptoms like sleep or loss of appetite, I think edibles are still fine. You really don't need the fine-tuned dosing that you would get, say, with a vaporizer or with a tincture.
Right. I want to move on a little bit to conditions. As a doctor, I think you relay in your book an experience you had going to a California doctor, probably not the best one that I've ever read about, but similar to my experience where they barely looked at me and it was about a 6-minute process. And I think in your case, they shuffled you right into a dispensary to buy something as well. My question to you is, if we look at this as holistic medicine, should we be seeing a doctor? Do we need a doctor's care in order to help us down this journey of taking marijuana?
It's a great question. I would back up a little bit and take a running start by saying we should be seeing somebody who can give us information about what this stuff does. We should be getting information about how to use it safely. We should get some information about risks and side effects to watch out for. We should be getting education and counseling. Does that have to be a doctor? No, I don't think so, especially since right now a lot of doctors don't think about this. They don't want to think about this. You might realistically get better advice from a good dispensary than you would from, say, an oncologist right now. So I think saying that person has to be a doctor, I'm not sure that's true. I think somebody who understands disease processes and symptoms and physiology would be helpful and probably part of the team. So I'm kind of thinking out loud here, but if I were a patient who had cancer, was using chemotherapy, had bad nausea despite treatment, I would want on my team an oncologist who knew what that chemotherapy agent did, as well as somebody else who knew how cannabis could fit into the therapeutic strategy. Somebody who knew enough about cannabis to be able to be intelligent about it, but also somebody who knew enough about medicine to know how it would fit. Sometimes that's a doctor, maybe sometimes it's a really good nurse practitioner, a physician's assistant, or a nurse, or some really, really good dispensary staff. And I had a chance to meet at least one of those who really, really knew his stuff. So I'm not sure who that should be, but I have a pretty good sense of what patients need. And it's going to be a while before there are enough well-trained people out there to give patients what they need.
Yeah, it's interesting that this is the only drug you need to see a separate doctor for right now. And I know it's all just part of the legal landscape of everything out there right now. But it does seem like we're moving towards this being more holistic in the future. We'll see what happens. We need to take a break, but when we come back, we'll talk more with David Casseret.
We will be right back once you get to know our sponsors.
Dr. Dabber, hurry! Its temperature is shooting past 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's burning up.
I'm afraid for this little guy, it's just too late.
What caused the problem?
Only Dr. Dabber can maintain the perfect temperature for a smooth-tasting, slower burn. This standard vaporizer lost all of its health benefits, sending it up in smoke.
So you're telling me that most vapor pens burn so hot they produce smoke, not vapor?
Correct. Keep away from those standard vaporizer pens and turn to Dr. Dabber. Doctor's orders.
Less heat, more flavor.
Ganjapreneur.com, your guide to the cannabis business world. Ganjapreneur.com is a comprehensive resource for cannabis professionals and entrepreneurs. Download the Ganjapreneur app on your smartphone or tablet to catch up on cannabis industry news, scroll through our daily job listings, and learn about successful cannabis companies, executives, and investors. Ganjapreneur.com, helping Ganjapreneurs grow.
Your connection to quality cannabis insurance services is spelled K-A-E-R-C-H-E-R. That's Karcher Insurance. We have worked with ventures like cannabis for over 60 years. We're proud to represent over 50 companies with tailor-made cannabis plans for owners just like you to insure your product, your plants, and your pursuits. K-A-E-R-C-H-E-R spells out their full-service insurance services ranging from commercial to bonds, to personal, from life to health, and more. Contact the team at KarcherInsurance.com and let our experience work for you. That's K-A-E-R-C-H-E-R Insurance.com.
Contact Karen and the team at Karcher Insurance at 1-844-421-3560. That's 844-421-3560.
MJWellness.com, the largest medical marijuana community in the world. Connect with thousands of patients, doctors, industry leaders, and businesses through shared personal experiences along our worldwide network. Discover new therapies and benefits with content tailored to you. Come grow your network on MJWellness.com. You're not alone. Your wellness matters. Learn, live, and thrive. Check out MJWellness.com today. Just Say No, spelled K-N-O-W, is back with more conversation about curing and healing with cannabis, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back. I'm Ryan Hunt from MJWellness.com, and we've been talking to Dr. David Casseret about his new book, Stoned. Some conditions I wanted to go over. We have a little bit of time left. But pain is probably the number one thing that people